Set in the city of Tianjin when the Qing dynasty was still in power, the story will begin by introducing a wushu martial arts academy that has been standing for a long time and is now led by a wushu expert. Let's call him Deadpool. While Deadpool is training, we are introduced to his son, who we will call Arthur. Arthur is still young, but he has already shown a strong interest in the art of wushu. He watches his father's movements intently as he demonstrates wushu. When his father finishes punching the rock and goes inside the house, little Arthur approaches the rock and... Arthur himself has a friend named John, and John is a smart kid who loves to read. Unlike Arthur, who is already bored of reading books and wants to train with his father at the dojo. But his father does not seem to agree, or maybe it's not yet time for him to train in martial arts. One day, a competition was held to determine which wushu school was the strongest in the city of Tianjin, where little Arthur also secretly attended the competition to watch his father fight on stage. Since the beginning of the match, Arthur's father was clearly stronger than his opponent. However, when he was about to injure his opponent, his concentration was distracted when he saw Arthur among the spectators and he lost the match. As a result, Arthur was mocked by the son of his father's opponent, and Arthur, who still had his dignity, dared to challenge the boy to fight. However, because he had never learned martial arts, Arthur was defeated with a battered face. Since that time, young Arthur began to show his ambition by secretly teaching himself wushu from his father's martial arts book. While John was diligently studying, Arthur kept practicing to be as good as his father. Once he felt proficient, Arthur challenged the boy from before to a fight again. Whether it was due to natural talent or the martial arts blood flowing in his body, young Arthur, who had only learned a few moves, was able to maximize even the simplest of them and easily defeated his opponent. Years later, Arthur has grown up and now has a little daughter. His wife passed away while giving birth to their daughter, and his father had also passed away a long time ago. Therefore, Arthur took over his father's dojo, where Arthur is known for his arrogance and has a great ambition to become the most powerful person in the city of Tianjin. Even so, Arthur greatly respects his mother, who always advises him not to be too obsessed with something because a person's greatest enemy is not the strong one, but ourselves. And just after being advised, his uncle has brought a challenge letter from a fighter named Tom, where it is said he has adventured to more than 30 provinces and so far, no one has been able to defeat him. Before the fight, Arthur took the time to pray to his late father and promised to honor the name of his dojo by collecting awards from every championship and becoming the strongest in the city of Tianjin. The challenge itself was held right in the middle of the city and was watched live by spectators from all over the city, and Arthur had to walk among the wood to be able to climb up where Tom was already waiting for him. Upon reaching the top, the two of them immediately fought at a fairly fast pace. It turns out that Tom has extraordinary ability, which is a strong body and legs, and is somewhat immune to regular physical attacks. As a result, Arthur was almost made to fall until he did a super plank and was overwhelmed with every attack he gave. When Arthur was hit, that's when his adrenaline started to pump, where he added strength to his legs that could even shatter a board. He then focused his attack on the nerve points of Tom's thigh so that Tom's leg strength would not be as strong as before and would be easy to knock down. Not wanting to lose, Tom unleashed his alternative move, the Black Panther Claw, which then tearing Arthur's clothes. However, with Arthur's natural ability, he could easily break Tom's fingers with just one hit, leaving Tom powerless. Once again, Arthur managed to win the fight and remained the strongest in most parts of Tianjin City. To celebrate this victory, Arthur invited his students to drink at John's restaurant, who used to be a bookworm but is now a businessman. While enjoying their meal, two young men appeared who wanted to learn at Arthur's martial arts school. Since it was a happy day, Arthur immediately accepted them and treated everyone there to drinks and fun. Ambition, arrogance, fame, and the desire to be respected clearly dominated Arthur's soul, causing him to forget someone very precious at home, his little daughter who waited every night for dinner with her beloved father. Since that night, Arthur's ambition to become an unbeatable creature in every multiverse grew day by day. He accepted every challenge from various martial artists, yet none of them could defeat him. Feeling it was too easy, Arthur allowed all the fighters to attack him at once. With the power he had gained from all the multiverses, Arthur was able to incapacitate them all with an unusual attack. As a result, more and more fighters wanted to train at his martial arts school. In his usual joyous manner, Arthur treated them all to drinks at his friend John's restaurant, and there was one visitor there who was the adopted son of a fighter named Master Po. The young man dared to whisper in Arthur's ear, saying that you have not become the strongest until you defeat my adoptive father, Master Po. One day, Arthur was advised by John to take a break from all his fights and ambitions where he felt that everyone just wanted to take advantage of him and all his students didn't really want to practice martial arts, but only wanted to drink and eat for free at his restaurant. Even Arthur's bills have now piled up, which is feared to become a problem for Arthur in the future. And what was his response? Arthur confidently replied that he would take care of the bills as soon as possible because for now he cannot or is not yet able to stop because there is still one great warrior that he needs to defeat, namely Master Po from the neighboring martial arts school, where his adopted child has dared to issue this challenge to him last night. For him, it is a challenge to determine who is the greatest in the city of Tianjin. One day, as Arthur and his students were out and about, they happened to run into Master Po and his students who were also out. There was a bit of tension between the two, a sign that the two dojos were competing with each other. However, the rivalry here was still within reasonable limits and could be considered sportsmanlike for both. Arthur's fiery heart and passionate spirit, now clouded by jealousy and pride, made Arthur feel that his students were too relaxed in their training. Arthur, who was filled with frustration, vented his emotions by beating up his students one by one and demonstrating a punch that could knock down a piece of wood, making them all scared. And then, that night, Arthur was shocked by the appearance of his students who were carrying one of their friends who had been severely beaten. The student confessed that he had just been beaten up by Master Po and his students. This caused Arthur's emotions to overflow even more and he decided to take revenge for Master Po's actions towards his student. Located at John's restaurant right when Master Po was celebrating his birthday, the adopted child kindly asked Arthur not to cause a commotion on this happy day. John also pleaded earnestly for Arthur to leave immediately because there were many esteemed guests present and it would be very unethical if Arthur caused a commotion that night. But due to the alcohol he had consumed, Arthur could not be stopped even by his close friend. Everyone was frightened and left the restaurant, leaving only Arthur and Master Po. A life and death battle ensued between the two. Arthur had no intention of fighting but to kill, so every attack he delivered was truly lethal and showed no mercy to his opponent. In the final moments of the battle, Arthur no longer upheld sportsmanship, even his conscience seemed to have disappeared. When Master Po was completely helpless, Arthur continued to deliver deadly attacks, all of which ended with a serious blow that cracked Master Po's bones and injured him on the spot. After the fight, his disrespectful students immediately celebrated the victory by inviting Arthur to drink. As for Master Po, he was rushed to the hospital, but his life could not be saved and he died 2 hours after the fight. The next morning, Arthur woke up with a messy face after getting drunk the night before. He was very regretful when he heard that Master Po had died after last night's fight. With his body still unstable, Arthur went home where he would be completely devastated when he found his mother dead in a pool of blood and his little daughter also dead in a very tragic condition. Arthur then visited Master Po's residence where there was his adopted child who confessed that he was the one who had killed Arthur's family as a form of revenge for the death of Master Po. Without a word coming out of his mouth, Arthur immediately slashed the young man's neck until he died and left Master Po's child and wife alive as proof that there was still a little sense of care and conscience in Arthur. Not long after, the students came carrying their friend who was injured last night. The student finally admitted that the reason why Master Po and his student beat him up was because he had drunk too much and insulted Master Po's wife, so it made sense if Master Po and his student beat him up badly. Hearing this, Arthur was truly very regretful. All of these actions were clearly a big mistake, not the fault of Master Po or his student, but his own fault. There was something in his mind that, as his late mother said, our greatest enemy is ourselves. Severe depression caused Arthur to experience mental instability, so he left the city of Tianjin by sailing to nowhere. For years, Arthur seemed like a madman who lived anywhere. Cold, hungry, rained on, he didn't care at all, until he passed a river and fell unconscious. Arthur was saved by the villagers who were farmers and ranchers. They all took good care of Arthur. There was even a blind woman named Mary whose face showed great concern for Arthur. She fed him and cleaned him until he looked like his old self. From that day on, Arthur learned to live peacefully, without ambition, emotion, or burning resentment. Arthur slowly began to forget his troubled past and started a life full of simplicity that transformed him into a new person. One day, a village child was stricken with sadness when his beloved buffalo died from coronavirus. Not long after, the child was reported to have stolen a buffalo from a neighboring village and was punished by them for this. The villagers flocked to rescue the child, who was being punished by being beaten with a cane until his incense was completely burned. Unable to bear the sight of a child being tortured, Arthur offered himself to take the child's punishment. One of the village champions, an expert in Muay Thai, increased the punishment specifically for adults, which was to be beaten up using his own hands and feet. Arthur received the punches and kicks without any resistance, accepting the pain with an open heart. He considered it as atonement for all the mistakes he had made in the past. But when the punishment administered by Tony Jaa became excessive, that's when Arthur acted in defense. Indeed, he did not fight back, but his movements clearly infuriated Tony Jaa. However, Arthur still managed to overwhelm him. After some time, Arthur felt it was time for him to return to his habitat. It was very hard for him to leave the village, especially leaving Mary, who had sincerely taken care of him and taught him many things. But Arthur had to go back to face his fears and atone for all his past mistakes. Arthur's return to Tianjin coincided with the end of the Qing dynasty. At that time, various countries were invading China and the city of Tianjin became one of their colonies. Upon arriving there, Arthur immediately went to his old house, which was now in a dilapidated and neglected condition. There was his uncle who had always faithfully guarded the house since Arthur was a child. He also revealed that the house was going to be seized several times, but John, his friend, always helped with various aids given to the uncle. Arthur went to John's restaurant to express his gratitude, but an employee said that he was currently busy. In fact, John refused to meet him because he was still upset about what Arthur had done the last time they met. Arthur then went to meet Master Po's wife with the intention of paying his last respects to the late Master Po. Arthur deeply regretted what he had done in the past. Arthur also met with his two loyal students who are now forced to make a living by working as security staff at an entertainment venue. They both still greatly respect Arthur as their teacher from the past. Arthur also visited Tom to apologize for their fight. Arthur, who has now become a new person, kindly gave Tom the secret book of his wushu techniques that Tom had always wanted. The last place Arthur visited was the grave of his parents, where he finally understood why his father held back his punch during their fight in the earlier scene. It wasn't because he saw young Arthur watching and lost concentration, but because he deliberately did so as he did not want to hurt his opponent and upheld sportsmanship in every match. At that moment, Arthur read a news article about an American fighter named Hercules who had fought 34 times without defeat, severely injuring 25 of his opponents, and insulted China by calling them sickly Asians. Unable to accept his country being insulted, Arthur returned to John to borrow money so he could register to fight against Hercules. John finally forgave all of Arthur's mistakes and agreed to finance everything as long as Arthur could defeat Hercules. The day of the match arrived. Physically, Hercules was 5 times larger than Arthur. However, in terms of technique, Arthur was clearly superior to Hercules' large body. In the early minutes, Arthur tried not to resist in order to read and study Hercules' every move. When he was cornered, Arthur pinched Hercules' ribs, causing him to release his attack. Afterwards, Arthur easily toppled this giant several times, even causing the wooden support on the side of the ring to come loose and its nails to protrude. Not wanting to give up just like that, Hercules became more ferocious with each attack. When Arthur was lying down, Hercules climbed onto the ring to perform a smackdown. But suddenly, yes, if Arthur wanted to, he could have severely injured Hercules right then and there. So when Arthur felt the match was over, he paid his respects and intended to leave the ring. But suddenly again, yes, again Arthur could have let Hercules be killed by the nail on the side of the ring. And at this point, Hercules finally acknowledged that Arthur was the true champion. He admitted his defeat by raising Arthur's hand in a show of sportsmanship in sports. After the match, Arthur spoke with John about where they want to take wushu next. They both have an idea to make wushu a part of sports. Based on his experiences and long journey, Arthur wants to introduce wushu not just for fighting or combat, but as a way to cultivate one's body, mind, and soul. Tom, who previously saw Arthur as an enemy, has now changed 180 degrees and is very supportive of Arthur's efforts to make Wushu go international. He officially joined Arthur's dojo so that Arthur could win in the next competition. On the other hand, we will be shown the organizers or some people behind every match. It turns out that these officials and leaders are making some kind of bet to reap as much profit as possible. They all do not care about sportsmanship and the true meaning of sports, so they will justify all means to get what they want in the next match. The competition day has arrived in Shanghai, where Arthur will face various martial arts and sports from around the world. If he proves victorious, Wushu will be included as one of the sports to be held at every Olympic Games in the world. In the first round, Arthur has to fight a boxer from England. Arthur easily defeats him without any difficulty. In the following rounds, Arthur's Wushu will also be tested by fighting against a horse-riding coach from Belgium and a fencing champion from Europe. All of them are easily defeated by Arthur. Finally, Arthur has to fight a fighter from Japan named Tanaka who uses a katana, while Arthur will use a triple stick or nunchaku as his weapon. The fight becomes tense when Tanaka's ability turns out to be far greater than the previous fighters. However, the always calm Arthur is able to withstand every attack. They even exchange weapons, with Tanaka proving less adept at handling the nunchaku. After the first round, both fighters are allowed to rest. Arthur takes this opportunity to drink tea as an effort to replace the ions he just lost. The second round of the fight will continue with bare hands. Unexpectedly, Arthur suddenly feels something strange in his body. He doesn't know what it is, but he starts coughing and his vision begins to blur until he finally coughs up black blood. This makes Tanaka ask the referee for a break. It turns out that a representative from Japan, let's just call him The Rock, had put poison into the tea that Arthur drank. This was done because he didn't want to lose the bet on the match. One of Arthur's students intended to take revenge, but Arthur forbade it because from his experience, revenge only gives birth to another revenge that can eventually make everyone suffer. With the determination to introduce Wushu to the world, Arthur, who is in a dying condition, insists on continuing the fight. Tanaka, a sportsmanlike fighter, initially refuses to do so. However, Arthur convinces him that a true fighter will always finish what they have started. Arthur falls and gets up again multiple times, even vomiting blood several times. Yet, he continues to stand for the honor of his country and his martial art. At this point, he musters the last of his strength to launch an attack like he did on Master Po. However, he deliberately holds back the attack because he doesn't want to repeat the same mistake. Tanaka fully realizes that Arthur is the winner of this fight. Set in the city of Tianjin when the Qing dynasty was still in power, the story will begin by introducing a Wushu martial arts academy that has been standing for a long time and is now led by a Wushu expert, let's call him Deadpool. While Deadpool is training, we are introduced to his son, who we will call Arthur.